Hello and welcome to the MAT2L math course. This is Math for Everyday Life for grade 10. We are starting with Unit 1, the circle. So we are looking at properties of a circle, and we're going to learn everything there is to know about the circle. So today's topic is properties of a circle. So here's our unit of study, and here's today's topic. And now I want to look at the learning goals. So what do I want you to be able to do by the end of the day? I want you to be able to tell me what the terminology is related to a circle, and then I want you to be able to identify it and sketch it on a circle. All right, so let's start looking at some of the properties. So I have two blank circles here. We're going to add some stuff in. So the first word or term that I want you to be aware of, a line that goes right through the center of the circle, and we always mark the center of a circle and we letter it letter O. So O always stands for the center of a circle. This line that goes all the way through the middle of the circle, so it has to pass the middle of the circle, is what we call the diameter. So diameter is a line that goes through the center of a circle. All right, if we have a line that goes from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle, we call that our radius. So the radius goes from the edge of the circle to the center of the circle. If we have a line that meets or crosses at the circle at 2 points, just like that, it doesn't pass through the middle of the circle, we call that a chord. A chord. So it's just a line that goes through the circle but does not pass through the middle. All right, now I'm going to work in the other circle as well. It's more for space issues. Okay. If I was to create a pie piece, so if you created a pie piece for me, we call this this pie piece a sector. Okay. This is what we call a sector, and that's the area of the pie piece. So there's our sector. All right. If we create a chord, that little chunk that's cut off the circle, if we were using scissors here, is what we would call a segment. A segment. So that's the area that's being chopped off. So there is our segment. Going back to the other circle for a second here, if I asked you to trace from my two red marks, so this right here, so from point A to point B, that red curve that I just created there along the edge of the circle is what we call an arc. Is an arc. So it's part of the circle. And the same thing over here, our sector, if we create a sector, the sector's edge is what we call an arc. And last thing I want to do, if we have a line that touches our circle but doesn't go inside it, so we have a line that just touches, we'll say it's touching right that point there, but continues on, we call that a tangent line. So it just touches the edge of the circle. All right. So I want to talk about diameter versus radius. So if this is the center of my circle, and I draw in a diameter, and again a diameter goes to the center of the circle, and I draw in a radius. So we usually use small d to represent diameter, and we use small r to represent radius. Diameter. And what do we know about diameter? A diameter passes through the center of a circle. Our radius r extends from the center of the circle to the edge. And now I'm going to use the smartboard here. I'm going to clone that radius. So here's the radius that I had drawn. And I'm going to just twist it a little bit here. And we can see that the radius matches up here with the diameter. If I clone it again, we find that it goes all the way across the rest of the circle. So the very, very important relationship here is that radius is half the diameter. All right. So an equation that we would come up then with is D equals 2R. All right, and eventually we're going to make our way and put that into our foldable so that you can remember that. So there's your diameter versus radius. The next terminology I want to talk about here is central angle versus inscribed angle. So if I identify the center of the circle for each one, all right, and again, it's just for space why I have the two circles. I'm going to draw a sector, okay, and I'm going to go above, pick any point on the circle, and I'm going to draw two lines that go to the other side, just like that. So we have two angles here. This angle right here, when the angle starts at the center of the circle, so I should be labeling that O. Okay. If the angle that we're looking at is made by two radii, or radiuses, so here's a radius and here's a radius, we call this the central angle. This is called the central angle. If the angle we're interested in is between two lines, random lines, they're not diameters, they're not radii, these are called, again, chords. So if the angle is between two chords, we call that the inscribed angle. So I'm just going to write that outside. This is our inscribed angle. Okay, so our inscribed angle is in between two chords. Our central angle is between two radii, or radius. So finally, what I want you to do, I want you to go through this with me and labeling the circle appropriately. So, which line represents the diameter? Which one represents the diameter? So I'm going to use color here. Diameter goes to the center of the circle. This should have been labeled. There's the center right there. So here is my diameter in green. I'll put a D on it. So what I'm going to do here, and very similar to the homework, I'm going to go around and label intersection points here so we can reference it. So when I want to answer this, number one, which line represents a diameter? The diameter extends from point A to point D. So line AD is the diameter. So you list it as the starting location and the end location. So for number two here, which line or lines represent a radius? Well, I'm going to do radius in blue. So it's any line that starts in the middle and reaches to the edge of the circle. So here's one. Oops, I'm going to have to make that an E, because I'll make that a G, just because I already have a D. Wasn't watching my lettering, my mistake. So again, OG is a radius. OC is a radius. And OB is a radius. So each of those represent a radius. Which lines represent chords? And I'll do this in red. So a chord is any line that does not go through the middle of a circle. So here's one up here. So we'll call that FG, start point, end point. And another chord right here is our FB. Name 4 arcs around the circle. 4 arcs. So I'm going to go back to a green pen here. Arcs are part of the edge of a circle. So for example, if I start at F and I trace down to A, there's the edge of a circle. So that arc would be FA. Now I can continue around, and I'll change to a red pen. If I go from A to B, that's the edge of a circle. So that's an arc. If I go to a blue pen, B to C, that's a part of the circle. That's another arc length. And then finally, back to green, I can go C to D. And that's also the arc length. So the question only asks for 4. We could keep going, and you could do D to G, G to E, and so on and so forth. Okay? Name a sector of the circle. Sector. So a sector is a pie piece. So using a blue pen, here's a pie piece right here. So the sector, you just got to label the 3 points or 3 corners to indicate a sector. So if I start at the center of the circle, I would go O to B to C. So OBC is the blue shaded area here. So this is my sector. Okay? Now, name a central angle. And there are a couple central angles here. A central angle is the angle between 2 radiuses, or radii. So here's one here. Okay? Here's one here. Here's one here. So we have 3 to pick from. I'm going to pick the first one that I did. Okay, I'm going to pick this one right here. So when I want to talk about an angle, I report it as this little semi, it's the greater than or less than sign, sorry. So angle, and the letter that's with the angle always goes in the middle, so we would go COD. So angle COD. All right. And finally, name an inscribed angle. So that's any angle that's between 2 chords. Well, we only have 2 chords, so we're only going to have one inscribed angle up here. So my inscribed angle, okay, is right there. And again, we show it with the angle symbol. And the F has to be the middle letter, so it'll be GFB. So I'm going to make sure we're clarified with that when we get a chance to sit down and talk. That completes our first lesson.